The night my granddaughter told me I'd be dead before her son learned to walk, I was sitting alone at the kitchen table in my slippers, holding a tablet I barely knew how to use, looking at photos of a party I hadn't been invited to. That's how it started. Not with a fight. Not with a warning. Just a glowing screen in a dark room, and the quiet sound of my husband snoring nearby, and the whole architecture of my life cracking silently beneath my feet. My name is Tomosa. I am 78 years old. And the story I'm about to tell you is not a sad story. It started as one. But it didn't end that way. Let me take you back to that night. The tablet was a gift from my daughter Clara, given to me 2 Christmases ago with the instruction that I use it to stay connected. I remember laughing softly when she said that, because I hadn't felt disconnected. I had my husband Anselmo, I had my kitchen, I had my garden. I had what I thought was a family. That night, I understood what she really meant. She wanted me connected just enough to feel included, but far enough away that my presence would never actually be required. I was scrolling through Facebook, slowly, the way old hands move across screens that weren't designed for them, when the photos appeared. Golden balloons. A 3-tiered cake with a single candle shaped like the number 1. My great-grandson Giorgito, laughing, showing his tiny pink gums, held in the arms of my granddaughter Vanessa, who was wearing a salmon-colored dress that made her look radiant. Around her, my daughter Clara. Neighbors. Old family friends. Even a distant cousin who never returned phone calls. Everyone was there. Everyone except Anselmo and me. I counted the faces in the photos the way you count money when you suspect you've been shortchanged. One by one. The timestamp on the post said 2 hours ago. The caption read, "The first birthday of my little prince. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming." My hand started trembling. Not from the Parkinson's the doctor monitored. That trembling was different, rooted in fear. This was something else entirely. This came from the chest. From somewhere older and deeper than disease. In the corner of our dining room sat a wooden rocking horse. Anselmo had carved it himself over 3 months, his arthritic hands working slowly, deliberately, with the kind of love that doesn't announce itself. It was wrapped in cellophane and tied with a ribbon I had curled myself with scissors. We had been waiting for the invitation that never came. I looked at that horse for a long time. Then I called Vanessa. The phone rang 3 times. The party was still going. I could hear the music, the laughter, the tinkling of glasses in the background. She answered with the voice of someone who picks up a call from an unknown number while expecting a delivery confirmation. "Hello. Vanessa. Sweetheart. It's Grandma Tomosa." There was a shift. Subtle, but I caught it. The way tone changes when the conversation becomes an inconvenience. "Oh, Grandma. Is something wrong? We're kind of busy right now." I steadied my voice the way I used to steady pots of boiling water when the children were small. Carefully. With both hands. "I'm looking at the photos, sweetheart. The party looks beautiful." A brief silence. Not the silence of guilt. The silence of calculation. I could hear her mind working, sorting through excuses, selecting the fastest one. "Ah, yeah, it all happened really last minute, you know how it is. Things got away from me. I forgot to call you, there was just so much going on." I looked at the 3-tiered cake on my screen. The balloon arch. The themed decorations. The 60 people in the background. "Last minute," I repeated. "You know how it is, Grandma. Anyway, your grandfather doesn't do well with noise, and with so many people." "Vanessa." My voice came out quieter than I expected. "Your grandfather has been carving Giorgito a rocking horse for 3 months. His hands barely work anymore and he spent 3 months on that horse. We've been waiting for the invitation." Silence. And then she said it. She said it the way you comment on the weather. Casually. Effortlessly. As though the words weighed nothing at all, when in reality they weighed everything. "Grandma, don't be dramatic. I forgot, okay? It's done. Besides, what does it matter?" A small laugh. almost bored. You're not going to be around to see him grow up anyway. You and Grandpa are on your way out. Enjoy whatever peace and quiet you have left. Don't worry about noisy parties. The clock in the hallway stopped ticking. I'm certain of it. Everything went still. I'm sorry. My voice was barely a thread of sound. I'm just being realistic, Grandma. You're both very old. Giorgito is a baby. By the time he's old enough to remember anything, you and Grandpa won't be here. That's just life. Anyway, I have to go cut the cake. Bye. The call ended with a dry click. I sat holding the phone for a very long time. Then I set it down on the flowered tablecloth and looked at my hands. The brown spots. The raised veins. The hands that had changed her mother's diapers. Her own diapers. The hands that had kneaded bread and scrubbed other people's laundry and counted coins in the dark so that the electricity wouldn't be cut. The hands that had curled ribbon with scissors for a birthday party invitation that never arrived. You're not going to be around to see him grow up anyway. In the armchair across the room, Anselmo slept. His breathing was soft and rhythmic, the sound of 55 years of shared nights. He had no idea what had just happened. In the corner, the rocking horse waited in its cellophane wrapper, patient and oblivious. I made a decision in that silence. I made it quietly, the way the most important decisions are always made. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with a cold, absolute clarity that settles into your bones and stays there. I got up. I didn't cry. Crying is for when you still hope things might be different. I was past hope. I was in the territory that comes after hope, the clean, bare ground of truth. I walked down the hallway of the house Anselmo and I had built together, brick by brick, bucket by bucket of cement. I passed the kitchen where I had cooked 10,000 meals. I passed the room where Clara had been born during a rainstorm. I stopped in front of the mirror in the entrance hall and I looked at myself. Old. Yes. Slow, yes. Spotted hands, clouded eyes, white hair, yes to all of it. But not dead. Not yet. That's what you think, I said to my reflection. Not loudly. I didn't need loudness. I said it the way you sign a contract. Quietly. Finally. With full understanding of what it means. I went to Anselmo's desk, solid oak, kept in perfect order, and I opened the third drawer. This was where we kept the important papers. The property deeds. The titles to the 2 commercial rental spaces we owned in the city center, whose monthly income supplemented our small pension. And the wills. The wills we had written 5 years ago in a burst of love and planning, because that's what good people do. They think of the ones who come after them. I pulled out the envelope marked will. Copy and read it the way you read a sentence that no longer means what you thought it meant. I bequeathed the bare ownership of the family home to my daughter Clara. I bequeathed the commercial properties to my granddaughter Vanessa upon my death. We had been so generous. So trusting. So catastrophically, almost comically generous. I folded the document and held it against my chest for a moment. Then I went to the kitchen telephone, cream-colored, with a coiled cord, the kind that has survived decades, and I opened my small leather address book to the letter L. Licenciado Benitez. Roberto. A serious man. An expensive man. An old friend of Anselmo's from their union days, who had gone on to study law and become someone formidable. I knew he worked late. He was a widower who used his office the way other men used whiskey, to fill the silence. I dialed. My fingers were steady. Not the steadiness of calm, the steadiness of purpose. He picked up on the third ring. Bueno. Roberto. It's Tomosa. Anselmo's wife. Dona Tomosa. What a surprise. Is something wrong with Anselmo? Anselmo is fine. It's the world that's wrong. But I'm going to fix it. I paused. I need an urgent appointment tomorrow morning. First thing. A beat of silence. Of course. What's this about? I want to revoke a will. 2 wills, actually. Mine and Anselmo's. I let the words land. And I want to discuss disinheritance clauses. And I want to know how quickly I can sell 2 commercial properties. The silence that followed was the silence of a man recalibrating everything he thought he knew. Tomosa, he said carefully, those properties are your primary income. And the future inheritance. Were, I said. Past tense. The future inheritance was for people who treated us like family. I've just learned we don't have any of those. I straightened my back against the kitchen wall. Prepare the strong coffee, Roberto. The old woman they wrote off has just woken up. And she has a great deal of work to do. I hung up the phone. Outside, it had begun to rain. The first drops hit the window with a force that felt like agreement. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen under the amber light of the range hood with a cup of tea I didn't drink and a mind that moved faster than it had in 20 years. The same mind that had renegotiated supply debts and rescued our grocery business from the edge of bankruptcy when I was 40 years old. That woman had never died. She had simply been buried under decades of being the quiet one, the soft one, the grandmother who always said yes. Vanessa had kicked her awake. Around midnight, I went to the small study, the room Anselmo kept packed with old receipts and rusted bolts and appliance manuals for machines we'd thrown away in 1990, and I opened the gray metal cabinet that creaked like a complaint. I pulled out the property folders and sat on the cold tile floor, my varicose legs crossed beneath me, and I read everything. Not the way a grandmother reviews old memories. The way an auditor reviews suspicious accounts. The rental income had flowed into our account for years, and then, almost automatically, back out again to Clara and Vanessa. For university, we said at first. Then for a car. Then a wedding. Then the apartment deposit. Then the baby. I found an old accounting ledger in my own handwriting, firmer then, recording every loan we had ever made. 2018. Loan to Clara for kitchen renovation. No interest. Pay when possible. 2020. Loan to Vanessa. Car down payment. Early birthday gift. Not a single peso had ever been repaid. We had never asked. Because family comes first. What a lie that had been. What a beautiful, expensive, devastating lie. I closed the ledger and reached to the back of the folder where I found something I had almost forgotten existed. A blue envelope. A notarized document from 3 years ago, when Anselmo had his heart scare and we both genuinely believed his time had come. The notary had visited our home. Anselmo, frightened of leaving me alone and helpless against bureaucracy, had granted me something extraordinary. A general power of attorney. Broad and absolute. I read the clause 3 times. Acts of administration and acts of domain. Domain. That word. I whispered it in the quiet kitchen like a prayer. Domain meant I could sell, mortgage, transfer, or otherwise dispose of any property in Anselmo's name. Without his signature. Without asking permission. Without alerting anyone. I pressed the document against my lips. Not in triumph. In something more complex than triumph. The bittersweet recognition that the weapon had been sitting in a drawer for years, and the people who most wanted my possessions had never thought to look. They always spoke to Anselmo about money. They smiled at him, flattered him, deferred to him, while treating me like the woman who brought the coffee. They had no idea that the old man, in his boundless love and trust, had handed me the keys to everything. I placed the document in my good handbag. The one I only used for mass and medical appointments. In the morning, I told Anselmo that Clara had called. That the baby had a fever. That the party was postponed. He sighed with the gentle resignation of a good man and said, "Poor little thing. We'll give him the horse next month." I stood behind him and smoothed his white hair and said nothing. Then I dressed in my gray power suit, the one with the shoulder pads that made me feel taller, applied lipstick, put on my pearl earrings, and called a taxi. Roberto's office smelled of old tobacco and polished wood. His secretary, a woman my age named Lupita, showed me in immediately. Roberto stood when I entered. He had aged. We all had. But his fox's eyes were still sharp. Tomosa. I was worried after your call. Don't be worried, Roberto. Be ready. I sat down, arranged my bag on my lap, and looked at him steadily. I need to change everything. I showed him the Facebook photo. He looked at it over his glasses. The balloons, the cake, the celebration from which we had been deliberately excluded. They didn't invite you, he said quietly. They didn't invite us because they've already written us off. I leaned forward. When I called to congratulate them, my granddaughter told me, and I am quoting her exactly, that I wouldn't be alive to see him grow up. That we were on our way out. That we should stay home and enjoy the peace and quiet and stop worrying about noisy parties. Roberto set his glasses on the desk. He rubbed his eyes. He let out a long, slow breath. I'm sorry, Tomosa. Truly. I didn't come here for sympathy. I placed the power of attorney on his desk like a chess piece being moved to its final position. I came here to act. He read the document. A slow smile, not happy exactly, but deeply satisfied, moved across his face. This is still valid, he said. And with this, Tomosa, you are Anselmo in every legal sense. Then here is what I want to do. I spoke for 20 minutes without hesitation. First, revoke both wills immediately. The new beneficiary upon my death would be a charitable foundation. Animals, students in need, I didn't care, Roberto could choose. Clara and Vanessa would receive only the legal minimum if the law required it. Nothing more. Second, sell the commercial properties. Now. Not wait. A chain of convenience stores had been trying to buy the corner location for years. Clara had always refused because she preferred the steady monthly rental income flowing into her own accounts. I did not prefer that anymore. Third, all proceeds from the sale to go into an irrevocable trust. The word irrevocable I pronounced slowly and with pleasure, administered solely for Anselmo's care and mine. The best doctors. Private nurses if we needed them. Travel. Every comfort we had denied ourselves for 50 years while filling the accounts of women who considered us already dead. Roberto was taking notes so fast his pen was almost smoking. And the house? He asked carefully. A reverse mortgage. The bank pays us monthly for the house. When we're both gone, the bank keeps it. Roberto sat back. You're going to leave them with nothing, Tomosa. No, I said, standing and smoothing my skirt. I'm going to leave them with exactly what they gave us. The same thing. Nothing. But before I could set the larger plan in motion, they came to me. I had visited the tenants in our commercial spaces, planted the seeds of uncertainty, told them the properties might be sold, watched their faces go pale. I knew Gregorio the pharmacist would call Clara. I knew the call would reach Vanessa. I knew they would come. I sat at my kitchen table like a spider at the center of a web, waiting. Thursday afternoon. I heard the car first. Not parking, arriving. The doors slammed with the force of people who are frightened and hiding it behind aggression. The click of keys in the lock. Then the door hitting the rubber stopper. Clara first. Mascara smeared. Face flushed. Then Vanessa, young, beautiful, carrying her arrogance like a handbag, but underneath it now something new. Fear. The specific fear of someone who can feel the ground becoming less solid beneath their expensive shoes. I sat with my hands folded on the tablecloth and arranged my face into something soft and confused. Shoulders slightly rounded. Eyes slightly vague. The look of a woman who perhaps misplaced her medication this morning. What is this, Mama? Clara exploded. I went to the bank and my access is blocked. I went to the properties and Gregorio says there are men measuring the facade. Grandma. Vanessa stepped forward, finger raised, manicure perfect. Paid for, I noted, by years of our rental income. My card was rejected yesterday. Do you understand how humiliating that was? I blinked at them both. Would you like some coffee, girls? What followed was almost operatic. Clara insisted I was confused. Vanessa insisted everything had to be reversed immediately. I played the trembling old woman beautifully, telling them I'd been to see Roberto, yes, but only about some small adjustments. Surely Roberto would explain everything. I didn't fully understand these legal things. When Vanessa slid a folder toward me and told me to sign right here, pointing to a small X on a document that was absolutely not a car insurance form, I reached out my hand. Let the tip of the pen touch the paper. Watched them both lean forward slightly, bodies tense with suppressed hunger. Then I set the pen down. Oh, how silly of me. Anselmo told me not to sign anything without Roberto looking at it first. You know how suspicious he's gotten in his old age. I smiled apologetically. Leave it with me and I'll bring it to him tomorrow. The mask fell from Vanessa's face like a plate from a shelf. What I saw beneath it was not love, not fear, not grief. It was fury. The pure, naked fury of someone who has been denied something they consider theirs by right. Clara snatched the folder. They left, slamming doors, their heels striking the path like small explosions. I walked to the door, closed it. Then I turned the deadbolt, the chain, the second latch. And I stood there in the silence of my own sealed house, and I let my spine straighten, let the performance dissolve, let myself simply be what I was. A 78-year-old woman who had just outmaneuvered two people who had underestimated her their entire lives. In the kitchen, I found the container of birthday cake they had left on the table. Leftover crumbs. The remains of the feast to which I had not been invited. I picked it up. I dropped it into the trash without opening it. The sound of plastic hitting the bottom of the bin was one of the most satisfying sounds I had ever heard. The next morning I went to the bank and cancelled their additional cards. Changed the online access codes. Transferred the proceeds of the property sale, a number that made the bank manager sit up very straight and suddenly treat me like visiting royalty, into the irrevocable trust. I came out of that building lighter than I had felt in years. The weight of being the permanent safety net, the silent funder, the invisible provider, all of it, gone. 2 days later, Anselmo and I flew to Cancun in first-class seats. When the flight attendant handed me a glass of cold champagne in crystal so fine I could see through it, I thought of all the years I had poured cheap cider into plastic cups so that Vanessa could drink good wine with her friends. I thought of the coins counted on the kitchen table late at night. I thought of a cellophane-wrapped rocking horse sitting in the corner of a room for a party that never invited us. Leave the bottle, I told her. Anselmo had his nose pressed to the window like a child. His eyes, clouded at the edges with cataracts, were shining. Tomosa, he whispered. It looks like we're inside the clouds. It looks like heaven, old woman. Not yet, my love, I told him, pulling the cashmere blanket over his legs. Heaven can wait. Right now we're going to paradise. Alive. The hotel was white marble and open sky and the kind of staff that treats old people with dignity instead of irritation. Our suite had a terrace that faced the Caribbean directly. When I opened the electric curtains and the sea appeared, that impossible blue, endless, restless, Anselmo stopped walking. He stood absolutely still, leaning on his cane, staring. And then he cried. Silently, shoulders shaking. A man of 80 years weeping at the side of the ocean he had never seen because there had always been something more urgent, some bill, some child, some sacrifice that came first. I stood behind him with my arms around his waist and my chin on his shoulder. Look as long as you want, I told him. Nobody's charging us by the hour. We ate lobster. We slept late. We sat on the beach in the mornings and ordered drinks we couldn't pronounce. The arthritis in Anselmo's hands seemed to ease near the saltwater, or perhaps it was simply the absence of worry. His face, which I had watched grow lined and gray with years of quiet financial stress, began to soften back towards something I recognized from our early marriage. It was on the 10th day that Roberto called. How is the Caribbean? He asked, and I could hear him smiling. Blue, I said. Expensive. Perfect. I have updates from the other front. I settled into the sun lounger. Tell me. Clara and Vanessa had been to his office 3 times. They had attempted to contest the property sale on grounds of Anselmo's mental capacity. Roberto had shown them the medical certifications signed by 3 doctors the day before the sale, and the video recording of Anselmo at the signing, where he had recited the 1970 baseball lineup from memory and told 2 jokes. They had attempted the sympathy angle. Vanessa had cried, had spoken about her baby, had used Giorgito's name like a weapon. Roberto had responded that a grown woman with a university degree and a husband was responsible for her own finances. And then the practical consequences had begun to arrive. Vanessa's credit card debt, which she had been planning to pay with the next month's rental income, was now being collected by the bank. Clara had sold her red sedan to cover it. Vanessa's husband, Roberto mentioned carefully, had left. Apparently the promised inheritance had been part of the equation he'd signed up for, and without it the math didn't work. I felt something when he told me that. A flicker, very brief, of something soft. The conditioned reflex of a mother and grandmother who always wanted to fix things. It lasted about as long as it takes to blink. Igual no estaras viva para verlo crecer. Let them walk, Roberto, I said. I walked my whole life so they could ride. Now it's their turn. We did not go home when the vacation ended. I called Roberto and told him to hire a company to clear the house, sell the furniture, and rent it out. I had no desire to return to walls soaked in the particular sadness of misplaced loyalty. Anselmo and I became nomads. We went to Madrid, where he stood in front of the Guernica and wept for the 2nd time in 1 month. Different tears, but just as real. We went to Italy, where I ate pasta without thinking about cholesterol and bought coats that cost more than our old monthly grocery budget. We lay in Venetian hotel rooms with the windows open and listened to water moving through the canals and fell asleep without setting an alarm. It was on a terrace in Tuscany, in autumn, the vineyards turning gold around us, that Anselmo finally told me he had known all along. He said it quietly, looking at the horizon. I almost dropped my cup of chocolate. Known what? I managed. He turned and looked at me. His eyes were tired, peaceful, and completely clear. That night, he said, I wasn't fully asleep. I heard some of what she said. Not everything. But I heard the part about us not being alive. His voice was steady. I've been carrying it since then. The same way I imagine you've been carrying the other things. To protect each other. 55 years of marriage contained in that sentence. We had both been shielding the other from the same wound, walking around it in opposite directions, meeting now on this hillside in Italy with the truth finally resting between us, small and powerless in the open air. He reached across the table and took my hand. She was right, you know, he said, and I must have looked horrified, because he smiled, that slow, warm smile I had loved since 1968. We probably won't see him grow up. But because she said that, we stopped waiting and started living. If she hadn't been so cruel, we'd still be sitting in that old vinyl armchair watching the news. So in a way, he laughed, low and private and wonderful, she gave us the greatest gift she ever could have. She terrified us into being alive. We laughed together on that Tuscan hillside like 2 thieves who had just gotten away with something magnificent. 2 months later, on that same terrace, in the late afternoon, with the sun going down over the olive trees and the smell of the neighbor's wood fire in the air, Anselmo fell asleep in his chair and did not wake up. He had a slight smile. The tan on his face was real, earned, recent. He had seen the ocean. He had drunk the good tequila. He had held my hand in Venice and whispered that he was the luckiest man he knew. He did not die in a hospital. He did not die alone. He did not die in the synthetic leather armchair, watching a news program, waiting for his granddaughter to invite him to a birthday party. He died like a king. I did not call Clara or Vanessa in time for the funeral. A small chapel in Florence. Roberto flew in. A few friends we had made along the way. Candles and good music and the overwhelming, complicated grief of losing the person who has been your home for 55 years. Now I am in Paris. 80 years old last Tuesday. I have a silk scarf and a hat I bought on the Rue de Rivoli and a glass of red wine that costs more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. The waiter does not look through me. He looks at me. I am checking my phone because Roberto told me to expect some news. There is a Facebook message. From Vanessa. Her profile photo shows Giorgito, now 2 years old, standing in what looks like a much smaller apartment than the last one. He has my nose. He has Anselmo's eyes. The message says, "Hi Grandma. I heard about Grandpa. I'm sorry. Mama is really struggling financially and I'm alone with the baby now. Could we talk? We miss you." I read it twice. I look at the little boy's face in the thumbnail. I feel it, that old pull, the blood calling to the blood, the reflex of a woman who spent 50 years saying yes. It rises in my chest like floodwater, real and strong and ancient. And then I remember Anselmo at the window. The tears on his face when he saw the ocean for the first time. I remember the rocking horse in the cellophane wrapper. I remember being told, pleasantly, efficiently, as though commenting on the weather, that I would be dead before I mattered. I remember every meal I cooked that went unacknowledged. Every loan that was never repaid. Every time I signed something without reading it because someone told me it was fine. I remember the container of leftover birthday cake dropped on my tablecloth like arms. My finger hovers over the screen for a moment. Just a moment. Then I press block. I put the phone in my designer bag, a bag I bought with money that was always mine, and I signal the waiter. "Garçon. Un autre coupe de vin, s'il vous plaît." He smiles and nods and goes to fetch it, and I look out at Paris in the afternoon light, at the movement of people on the street, everyone rushing somewhere, everyone young, and I feel something I have not felt in 78 years of being a wife and mother and grandmother and provider. I feel entirely, completely free. I want to say something to every woman my age who has been told her time is past. Every woman who has kept the good china locked away for a special occasion that never came. Every woman who has made herself smaller so that ungrateful people could feel bigger. Listen to me. The money was always yours. The house was always yours. The life was always yours. You built it. You earned it. You maintained it while everyone else was busy taking from it. You do not owe anyone a comfortable inheritance in exchange for being treated like a piece of furniture. The greatest revenge is not making them suffer. The greatest revenge is refusing to. Spending every last coin on yourself. Seeing the world. Eating the good food. Wearing the good clothes. Choosing every single day to be alive on your own terms. Vanessa told me I would be dead before her son remembered me. She was trying to bury me. Instead, she woke me up. I am Tomosa. I am 80 years old. I am sitting in Paris with wine in my hand and the whole world in my chest. And I have never, in all my years on this earth, been more alive.